My job was to identify countries with resources our corporations want, like oil was one of the big ones back then, and then convince the country to convince the president or the minister of finance, whoever, to take a huge loan from the World Bank to hire U.S. engineering corporations to build big infrastructure projects like power systems, hydroelectric plants, and the transmission distribution lines, and highways, industrial parks, things like this. These are things that benefited, first of all, the companies that built them, U.S. corporations that made huge profits off building them, but also benefited a few wealthy families in those countries, including the president and his cronies, who owned the commercial and industrial establishments that benefit from that infrastructure.
Right.
But it didn't help the people. In fact, the majority of the people ended up suffering because money was diverted from education, health care, and other social services to pay off the interest on the loans. And in the end, the loans couldn't be repaid. And so the contract with the company, through the World Bank or whatever establishment we were using as a banking institution, was that their oil or whatever the resource was that we coveted was collateral on the loan. So when they couldn't repay the loan, we go back, I'd go back, and now I'd be basically working for the International Monetary Fund, which is sort of the policing organization around all of this, and say, hey, we'll restructure your loan. But
we own you.
But we own you, and you need to sell your oil real cheap to our oil companies without many environmental or social regulations. You need to privatize your water and sewage systems and sell them to some of our investors. You need to let us build a military base on your soil and vote with us on the next United Nations vote against Cuba, for example. So basically, we set these terms that were very colonialistic. We were bringing them into our realm through the use of debt. So we were really creating an empire, but not through the military. We realized after Vietnam that the military wasn't very effective at winning the hearts and minds of people. And the way to do it was through economics.
Jesus Christ. Hold on. Let's wait a second. There's a trash truck emptying a dumpster right outside of our door, and it's ridiculous.
I'm glad to know that's what it is.
It's not a tank pulling up.
Incidentally, I don't know whether we're still being recorded or not, but I just wanted to, when I've watched some of your programs before, and I've watched it with my partner, and she and I looking at are those guys drinking beer?
Yeah, right. It looks like beer.
Looks like
That's
beer.
the goal. It's supposed to look like beer because when kids go to like music festivals or like rock concerts, right? When your friends are drinking beer and you want to stay sober and stay hydrated and healthy, you can look like you're drinking a beer and fit in and just be getting hydrated.
Oh, it's water.
And they made water metal, right?
Yeah.
So their slogan is "Murder Your Thirst."
Excellent.
It's pretty cool. It's cool water.
Yeah.
And it's environmentally friendly.
Is that my camera?
Yes.
It's water.
Don't be afraid. It's just water.
It's just water. I'm not drinking beer on this program. Not that I wouldn't if I were offered one, but...
Annie Jacobson refused to drink it when I gave it to her.
Because
it was called Liquid Death. She's like, I'm not drinking that. I'm like, Annie, it's just water. Don't be afraid. She's like, I don't care. I'm not drinking anything with the word death on it. I'm like, okay, I don't blame you.
there's a Jaguar to touch.
Yeah, right? Oh, man. All right, what were we just talking about? Basically, you were just laying out the way you guys were colonizing the world and strong-arming nations to basically bend to your will and let you use their resources for a discount because you guys conned them into some bad loan that they could never repay.
Yes. And here's where the perception thing comes in. We provided them with a really nice report, and that's where I came. I wrote good reports. I'd been an English major. I like to write, so I could write these reports. And with all the statistics that my guys had produced, but this report would say, if you invest all this money in building this infrastructure, hiring our companies to build this infrastructure, your economy will grow. And we measured it by GDP, gross domestic product. And it's true. When you invest this money in that kind of infrastructure, the GDP grows. And so the president would be happy. He'd take it out to his people, take it to the newspapers and say, hey, we've just taken out this loan. Our economy is going to grow. And it did. And I believed for many years when I was doing this, coming out of the Peace Corps, I had a good conscience. I thought I believed that I was doing the right thing because that's what econometrics show, that when you do this, your economy grows. But what we didn't understand, what I didn't understand, is that GDP basically measures how well the wealthy are doing, how well the big corporations are doing. It does not measure the prosperity of the average citizen.
No. It's the overall country.
Right. So it's a statistic that's warped in favor of big international corporations and the very wealthy and powerful. So, but we were producing these reports.
Well, it's warped in favor of the country, right? It's the GDP only reflects the country. It doesn't
but it only reflects the wealthy people in the country and the corporations in the country. That's what it mainly reflects.
Right.
So
you're saying that they're mainly responsible for the largest percent of the GDP.
Yeah. Well, here's an example. Let's say there's 3 people in the United States that have as much wealth as half the rest of the population of the United States. So if those 3 people last year made 10% on their investment and half the country lost 3%, and everybody else remained the same, you can do a back-of-the-envelope calculation, you would show a growth of almost 4%, when in fact only 3 people made any money. Everybody else either stayed the same or lost 3%.
Right.
And so these statistics are extremely, extremely deceptive, but they create this perception, and then they put the country deep into debt, and then we take its resources. And so it's a very, very clever and insidious system. It's all based on a con.
So your chart that you would give them, showing them how their GDP would rise, how was that chart? How did that chart work? Did you basically show them the money that they were going to make? Or did you basically manipulate the chart saying that the middle class, so the lower class, was going to be boosted by this? How did that chart look?
The simplest answer to that is that you could chart other countries that are taking these loans. You'd have a graph and you'd have a whole series of countries. And the ones that had accepted these loans and built this infrastructure, their GDP had gone way up. The ones that didn't get the loans, their GDP was still way down here. That's the simplest explanation. Okay. But we'd produce much more sophisticated models that went into each sector and showed what we could expect the industrial sector to grow by, the banking sector, the commercial sector, the agricultural sector. So we created these very, very sophisticated, complicated econometric models that nobody but an econometrician could understand anyway. But the World Bank liked them because they were all into that kind of stuff.
Right.
And the presidents liked the conclusion. And incidentally, so the other thing was that these presidents or ministers of finance knew that if they didn't accept these loans, then the people we called the jackals would step in.
Felix Rodriguez?
I think Felix could be rated as one of those. But yeah, these are people that either overthrow governments or assassinate leaders. And usually they don't even need to step in. So basically, I go into a president's office and I say, look, Mr. President, here's a few $1 billion I can offer you in a loan that you can use to really improve your GDP. Or if you don't take this loan, I've got a gun in this other hand. Now, I didn't carry a gun, but he and I both knew there were people behind me that carried guns. And, they'd overthrown Allende in Chile and Arbenz in Guatemala and Mossadegh in Iran and Lumumba in the Congo. And
so we're talking about the CIA knuckle draggers.
CIA operatives, yeah. and sometimes it's very convoluted. So the CIA may actually use operatives from Argentina or some other place where they've got influence, so they're not directly connected.
Right.
But there are these people, and the presidents of these countries know that they're there. And so what do you do if you're a president? I tell you, hey, Mr. President, I'm going to help you become rich and look really good to your people. You'd be reelected, and your family owns these industries, and they're going to benefit from better electrical power and better highways. So I offer you this, or don't take it, and
Well-
you'll probably be thrown out of power and maybe taken out.